The girl came to rent a room, she said. Maybe you're a good landlord. I replied, will you return? The solar panels outside glimmered faintly in the dim light of a distant sun. Inside, the hum of machinery was constant, a steady reminder of life in isolation. Elias walked through the narrow corridors, carrying a small tray with 2 steaming cups of tea. He paused by the observation window and looked out into the void. The stars stretched endlessly, a sparkling sea that made the station feel both infinite and painfully small. A sudden chime broke the quiet. It was the docking bay alarm. Elias frowned and set the tray down. Visitors were rare here and he hadn't received any notification. He walked to the bay controls and checked the cameras. A small craft hovered near the docking platform. It was sleek, almost fragile-looking, with faint markings he didn't recognize. And in its cockpit sat a single figure, a girl no older than 20 with sharp eyes and a calm expression. Elias hesitated. Strangers don't come this far alone, he muttered to himself, but he didn't panic. He had been alone for months, and a visitor might bring change, good or bad. The docking clamps engaged, and the airlock hissed as it opened. The girl stepped out, moving gracefully as if she had done this 100 times before. She carried a small bag, nothing bulky or threatening. "Hello," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I need a room for a while." Elias blinked. He hadn't expected someone to just show up and ask for lodging. He studied her carefully. There was something strange about her, something that didn't quite fit the ordinary. I don't usually get visitors," he said slowly, "especially at this hour." "I'm not ordinary," she said with a faint smile. "Maybe you're a good landlord." Elias chuckled nervously. "Maybe," he replied, "but maybe also not. Will you return?" The girl paused, tilting her head slightly. "We will see," she said, and then she followed him down the corridor. Her steps were light, almost floating above the metal floor. Elias showed her to a small room near the back of the station. It wasn't much, just a bed, a small desk, and a window facing the stars. But it was clean and it had a quiet charm. "This will be fine for now," she said, setting her bag on the bed. "Thank you." Elias nodded. "I don't usually get guests," he said again. "You're lucky the station is mostly empty." She looked out the window at the stars, her expression thoughtful. "I've traveled a long way," she said, "and I've learned to be careful." Elias watched her, sensing that there was more to her story than she let on. He wanted to ask questions, but something told him that patience was better. The universe had a way of revealing its secrets slowly. He left her to rest and returned to his small control room. The station was quiet again, except for the low hum of machinery. He poured himself a cup of tea and looked at the monitors, half expecting to see trouble, but nothing moved. The stars were calm and the station held steady. Yet there was a tension in the air, something unspoken. Elias couldn't shake the feeling that this girl, Lyra, as he learned her name to be, was not just a simple traveler. She carried with her a quiet confidence, a skill that spoke of experience beyond her years. Over the next few hours, Elias watched her quietly from a distance. She explored the station with care, touching the walls, examining the panels, but never interrupting the delicate systems. It was clear she respected the space, but also that she understood technology deeply. By evening, she returned to her room. Elias knocked lightly on the door. "Dinner's ready. I don't have much, but it's warm." She smiled faintly. "Thank you," she said. She joined him in the small dining area, and for a while they ate in silence. The hum of the station and the distant stars were their only companions. Finally, Elias spoke. "You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to, but if you need help, I can provide it, within my limits." Lyra looked at him carefully. "I know," she said. "But your station, it's a rare place. Few understand its importance." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Importance? You keep it safe," she said. "Safe from what others cannot manage. That makes a difference even if you don't see it." He smiled slightly, unsure how to respond. She had a way of speaking that made ordinary things feel extraordinary. The night passed quietly. Elias slept fitfully, a mix of curiosity and unease filling his dreams. The station seemed to breathe around him, alive with machinery and the quiet presence of the stars. Morning came, and with it, a strange sense of anticipation. Elias watched Lyra prepare her small breakfast. She moved efficiently, yet her eyes constantly scanned the room, the windows, the hallways. She was alert, aware of everything. Finally, she spoke. "I've learned something in my travels," she said. "No machine, no alien system, no rule can predict a human's mind. That's what makes you valuable." Elias nodded slowly. "Maybe," he said, "or maybe it's just stubbornness." Lyra laughed lightly. "Stubbornness is part of it," she admitted. "But so is care, curiosity, and courage." He studied her carefully. There was a quiet truth in her words, one that resonated with him more than he expected. Humans, she implied, could do what others could not. That idea, so simple yet powerful, gave him a strange sense of hope. The station suddenly felt less empty. With Lyra here, it was as if the stars outside were watching, curious themselves, waiting to see what humans would do. As the day went on, they began to talk more. Lyra shared small stories of her travels, not enough to give away her secrets, but enough to show her experience. Elias told her about the station, the quiet routines, the lonely work. It was a slow dance of trust, each learning about the other in small, careful steps. Then in the late afternoon, the first problem appeared. A minor system alert flashed on the monitors, nothing serious, just a warning about oxygen levels in a secondary corridor. Elias frowned and moved to investigate. Lyra followed, moving alongside him without asking. "Do you want help?" she asked. He hesitated, then nodded. "If you know what you're doing." Together they traced the issue, finding a small blockage in a vent. Lyra guided him, offering suggestions he hadn't considered. Together they fixed it quickly. Elias realized that her presence wasn't just interesting, it was helpful. She had skills he didn't, skills that complemented his own. By evening, the station was calm again. Elias looked out the observation window at the endless stars. He felt a strange sense of anticipation mixed with caution. This girl, Lyra, had arrived unannounced, yet she seemed to change everything simply by being here. When he returned to his room, he found her waiting by the window, staring at the stars. "Do you think humans are meant to be alone in the universe?" she asked quietly. Elias considered her question. "No," he said finally, "but sometimes it feels that way." Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the distant light of faraway suns. "Then we create connections," she said softly, "even in the loneliest places." Elias felt a strange warmth at her words. For the first time in months, maybe years, the station didn't feel empty. It felt alive, as if the stars themselves were listening. As night fell, Elias returned to his small bed. Outside, the station hummed in rhythm with the universe. He knew one thing for certain. This visit, brief as it might seem, would change the quiet, lonely rhythm of his life forever. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he wondered, as he had asked earlier, will she return? The station settled into a quiet rhythm again. The hum of machinery and the soft light of the stars became a kind of music, steady and comforting. But the calm was only temporary. Lyra moved through the small corridors with ease. She examined panels, checked the air vents, and occasionally glanced at Elias with a hint of curiosity. He noticed her attention to detail. She didn't just look, she studied, observed, and understood. "You're very careful," he said one morning as he watched her adjust a sensor. She looked up, her sharp eyes meeting his. "I have to be. One mistake, even a small one, can change everything." Elias nodded slowly. He understood. Life in isolation required constant attention. But there was more to it than that. Lyra seemed to carry knowledge beyond ordinary survival. "You've traveled a lot," he said cautiously. "I can tell, not just through space but through experience." She smiled faintly, a touch of pride in her expression. "Experience is valuable," she said, "and sometimes dangerous." Elias frowned. "Dangerous?" Lyra paused, choosing her words carefully. There are beings out there who don't see humans as equals. They see us as unpredictable, inefficient, sometimes amusing. But that unpredictability can be a threat to them. Elias leaned back. You mean aliens? Yes, she said simply. Some are indifferent, some are curious, and some are dangerous. He considered her words. Humans were known across many regions as clever, adaptable, and stubborn. Perhaps that was why she had chosen his station. Maybe it was because humans like him, ordinary and careful, could make the impossible possible. For the next few days, they worked together. Lyra showed him small techniques to monitor the station more efficiently. She adjusted sensors, repaired minor circuits, and taught him ways to detect even the slightest anomalies. He was surprised at how quickly she learned his routines, almost anticipating problems before they appeared. You think too linearly, she said one afternoon as they inspected the communication array. You follow patterns, rules. That works for machines, but not for life. He frowned. I follow rules for safety. Yes, she agreed. But sometimes breaking them carefully can save more than following them blindly. Elias found himself listening more than speaking. Her perspective was different, fresh. It was something he hadn't realized he was missing. The station was small, predictable. Her presence made everything feel alive, full of possibility. Then, one quiet evening, an alert sounded from the observation deck. A distant blip appeared on the sensors. Elias rushed over. What is it? Lyra asked, her voice calm but alert. Not sure, he replied, analyzing the readings. It's far but moving fast, something approaching the station. Lyra stepped closer. She examined the readings, her eyes scanning rapidly. Not ordinary traffic, she said. Something organized, advanced, likely intelligent. Elias felt a chill. He had lived alone for so long that the idea of danger felt strange. He had faced mechanical failures, solar storms, even minor fires, but never anything intentional. Lyra placed a hand on the console. We need to prepare. Not because they want to harm us necessarily, but because they will try to control anything unpredictable. He frowned. Control. They won't understand humans, she said. They underestimate us. They think logic alone guides us. But humans are unpredictable, clever, resourceful, and that scares them. Elias felt a spark of something familiar, a human spark, the instinct to survive and outthink challenges. So we fight with brains, not weapons, he said. Lyra nodded. Exactly. They spent hours reinforcing the station. It wasn't about weapons or defenses. It was about clever traps, rerouted systems, and unexpected methods to detect intrusions. Lyra showed him how to use simple tools in ways that seemed almost magical. You see, she said, humans can turn ordinary things into extraordinary advantages. Elias realized how true it was. The station, once a quiet, predictable place, was now alive with possibilities. Every panel, vent, and sensor became a potential tool, an opportunity to outsmart whatever approached. Late that night, they sat together in the observation deck, watching distant stars. The blip had moved closer, but it wasn't yet a threat. It was a reminder. Why did you come here? Elias asked quietly. Lyra looked out at the stars, thoughtful. I could go anywhere, she said. But I chose here. Humans, you're not just clever, you care. You see patterns others don't, and you can act on them in ways others can't. Elias felt a quiet pride. It wasn't arrogance, it was recognition. Humans had limitations, yes, but their strengths were different from anything else in the galaxy. For the next few days, they monitored the approaching blip. It became clear that it was not a random ship. It was scouting, searching, analyzing. Lyra explained that certain alien factions were interested in humans for one reason: unpredictability. Machines could be predicted, systems could be hacked, but humans acted from curiosity, instinct, and ingenuity. Elias realized how true it was. Even alone, even in the quiet corners of space, humans were capable of influence, of resistance, of survival. Then one afternoon, a small problem appeared in the station's systems, a minor power fluctuation in the life support circuits. Elias immediately moved to correct it, but Lyra stopped him. "Not that way," she said. "Think differently." He frowned. "There's only one correct method." "Not for humans," she said, smiling slightly. "There's always another method, always another solution." Together, they rerouted power through an unusual sequence combining human logic and intuition. The problem was solved faster than either could have done alone. Elias laughed, impressed. "You really are unpredictable. And that's why I'm here," she said simply. Over the next week, their partnership strengthened. They worked, ate, and even rested together in quiet companionship. Elias found himself trusting her in ways he had not trusted anyone in years. Lyra seemed to understand not only machines and technology, but also people, their instincts, their motivations, their limits. It wasn't just survival, it was growth. The station, once a place of loneliness, had become a center of collaboration, creativity, and strategy. One evening, a distant message crackled over the communication array. It was weak, fragmented, but recognizable. A warning. A signal from beyond the known borders. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They know where I am," she said quietly. Elias felt a rush of adrenaline. "Who?" "The ones who seek control," she said. "They won't understand what we can do, but they will try." Elias nodded. He felt the old loneliness lift slightly. Fear remained, but it was tempered by confidence. Humans working together were not helpless. They had cunning, resourcefulness, and unpredictability. And together, he and Lyra had something stronger than any technology alone could provide. They spent the next hours preparing quietly. Not weapons, but strategies, alerts, and contingencies. Every system in the station became a tool. Every ordinary object, a potential advantage. Late at night, they stood together by the observation window. The distant stars sparkled, serene and indifferent. Yet within that vast, endless expanse, humans had carved a place, a small, fragile but powerful presence. Lyra turned to Elias. "You see," she said softly, "humans are not just survivors. You are creators, innovators, thinkers. That is why we endure." Elias felt a swell of pride. He realized something essential. Humans were underestimated, yes, but that underestimation was their greatest strength. The galaxy expected them to follow rules, to act predictably, but humans did not. They adapted, they learned, they surprised, and together he and Lyra were already proving it. The night passed with quiet tension. Every sound, every flicker of light, every sensor reading was carefully noted. Yet there was no panic. Instead, there was focus, determination, and a sense of purpose. Humans, he realized, could be small, alone, and fragile, but when they chose to act together, their influence could reach across the stars. As sleep came, he reflected on Lyra's words: unpredictable, resourceful, courageous. Yes, humans could be all these things. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to face whatever was coming. Outside, the stars shone as they always had, silent witnesses to the small, extraordinary acts of humans who dared to thrive in the vast unknown. The small station floated quietly at the edge of the galaxy, but peace was a fragile thing. The distant blip on the sensors that Lyra had noticed days ago grew larger, moving steadily closer. Elias monitored the readings, a cold tension settling in his chest. "They're coming," he said softly, though Lyra had already known. She stood beside him, calm yet alert. "Yes. They will arrive soon, and they won't understand why we are ready." Elias felt a mixture of fear and excitement. Fear, because the unknown often brought danger. Excitement, because this was an opportunity to test what humans could do when faced with a challenge no one else could understand. The first ships appeared at the outer edge of the station's detection range. They were sleek, silver-gray, with smooth surfaces that reflected starlight. They moved as if part of a single mind, synchronized and precise. Humans were chaotic, unpredictable, yet they relied on instinct, creativity, and cooperation. qualities these ships could not anticipate. Lyra turned to Elias. "We cannot fight them with force," she said. "They are stronger than any human weapon, but we can outthink them." Elias nodded. "Then we fight with brains, not arms." For the next several hours they worked tirelessly. Lyra guided Elias through a series of clever modifications to the station. They rerouted power through unusual circuits, set up decoy signals to confuse the approaching ships, and created automated traps that exploited the aliens' reliance on precision and pattern recognition. "You see," Lyra said, "they expect predictability. We are anything but predictable." Elias smiled faintly. He had never felt more alive. The station, once a lonely outpost, had become a place of strategy, creativity, and human ingenuity. As the alien ships moved closer, their presence became more obvious. The station's sensors detected them scanning the area, analyzing patterns, attempting to predict movements. But every human adjustment, every unconventional tactic, disrupted their calculations. Elias realized something important. Humans were not designed to be machines, and that difference was their greatest strength. While the aliens relied on logic and algorithms, humans could improvise, adapt, and create solutions in real time. Lyra led him to the observation deck. Through the reinforced glass, they could see the ships approaching in formation, gleaming under distant starlight. "They are curious," she said. "They do not understand fear, hesitation, or creativity, but they fear the unexpected." Elias thought about the long years of solitude he had spent on the station. He had survived storms, mechanical failures, and isolation. But this was different. This was a test of every skill he had, every instinct, every lesson he had learned as a human in the vastness of space. Hours passed as they monitored and adjusted. The aliens moved like shadows across the sensors, probing, scanning, and analyzing. Each time they detected something unusual, they slowed, hesitated, recalculated. Elias realized the small adjustments they made, seemingly insignificant, were enough to frustrate the alien intelligence. Lyra smiled. "Do you see? Even in isolation, humans can create problems that no machine can solve." Elias felt a rush of pride. For the first time, he understood the weight of her words. Humans were underestimated, dismissed, and ignored by the larger powers of the galaxy. But that underestimation was their secret advantage. Then, the first direct approach began. One of the alien ships altered its course, moving closer to the station. Elias and Lyra activated the decoy systems. Lights blinked, signals flickered, and the sensors fed the aliens a false map of the station's layout. "They're confused," Lyra said softly. "They cannot predict what we are doing." Elias watched as the ship hesitated, scanning, then moved in another direction. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it worked. The aliens were smart, but human unpredictability was smarter. As night fell over the station, the tension grew. Every system, every sensor, every panel had become a tool. Humans had turned ordinary objects into instruments of strategy. They had outsmarted the first probe, but more were on the way. Lyra guided Elias through additional modifications. They created hidden compartments, rerouted power in unconventional ways, and set up automated feedback loops that would send false readings to the approaching ships. "You are learning quickly," she said. "Humans do not need perfection. We need creativity and courage. And you have both." Elias felt a surge of confidence. The station was no longer just a lonely outpost. It was a symbol of human resilience and ingenuity. The alien ships, advanced and precise, were forced to adapt to human chaos, a concept they could barely comprehend. Hours later, a larger wave approached. Multiple ships, moving in perfect synchronization, scanning the void. Elias and Lyra activated the station's defenses. Not weapons, but clever diversions. Lights flickered, doors sealed unexpectedly, sensors emitted false readings. The aliens hesitated, recalculated, and moved cautiously. "You see," Lyra said, watching the ships on the monitors. "We are not stronger, we are smarter, and that is enough." Elias nodded, feeling the thrill of strategy. He had never felt more alive. Humans were underestimated, yes, but that underestimation was their greatest advantage. Their creativity, intuition, and courage were forces no algorithm could predict. Then, an unexpected problem arose. One of the alien ships seemed to have bypassed their diversions. It moved directly toward the station, scanning rapidly. Elias and Lyra exchanged a glance. "This one is smarter," Lyra said. "We must think differently." Together, they devised a new tactic. Using the station's environment, they created a series of controlled anomalies, small, sudden changes in gravity, light, and energy patterns. The ship paused, unable to process the unexpected shifts. Elias realized the aliens relied heavily on predictable physics and patterns. Humans, however, could introduce chaos without losing control. The tactic worked. The ship hesitated, then retreated, recalculating its approach. Elias felt a surge of pride. Humans, small and isolated, had outsmarted an advanced alien mind. Lyra smiled. "Humans are underestimated," she said, "and that makes us dangerous in ways others cannot see." Elias realized the truth in her words. The aliens had power, precision, and advanced technology, but humans had something more: ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. And in that combination, they were unstoppable. As the night wore on, the alien fleet continued to probe, but the station remained safe. Every challenge was met with creativity, every obstacle turned into an opportunity. Elias and Lyra worked tirelessly, their partnership growing stronger with each success. By dawn, the first wave had passed. The station was intact, its systems humming steadily. Elias looked at Lyra, feeling a sense of deep respect and gratitude. "You did well," he said. "We did well," Lyra nodded. "Yes, but this is only the beginning. Others will come. They will try different methods, but humans, we can always adapt." Elias felt a sense of purpose he had not known for years. The station was no longer a lonely outpost. It was a place where humans could show their strength, not through force, but through creativity, courage, and intelligence. For the first time, he understood the full weight of Lyra's presence. She had come not just to rest, but to remind him, and perhaps all humans, of what they could achieve. The stars outside remained silent, indifferent, and infinite. Yet within that vast, dark space, humans had carved a place for themselves. They were small, yes, but clever, resourceful, and brave. And as long as they remained united, they could face anything the galaxy sent their way. Elias watched the sunrise over distant stars, feeling a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Humans were underestimated, yes, but that underestimation was their greatest strength. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "They will come again," she said softly, "but we will be ready, and they will never fully understand us." Elias nodded, a quiet smile forming. "No," he agreed, "they will never understand humans, and that is why we survive." The station hummed around them, a small beacon of human ingenuity in the endless void. The alien fleet was still out there, but for now humanity had prevailed, not with weapons but with brains, courage, and creativity. And somewhere in the distance, Elias knew, the galaxy was taking note. The station had survived the first wave, but the quiet that followed was tense. Elias moved through the corridors, checking systems that Lyra had already optimized. It was strange to feel alert, and yet safe at the same time. Lyra worked beside him, her movements confident and purposeful, yet there was a calm intensity in her eyes that told him she had more on her mind than the station alone. "I need to tell you something," she said softly, breaking the silence. Elias paused, wiping his hands on a cloth. "About the aliens." "Partly," she said, glancing out the observation window. "But it's bigger than that." He frowned. "Bigger?" Lyra nodded. "I am not just traveling. I carry something, knowledge, data, instructions, something that humans need to survive in the galaxy." Elias stared at her, trying to understand. Knowledge? Yes, she said. Not weapons, not technology you could sell or trade, but knowledge of how to think, adapt, and act in ways other civilizations cannot predict. The kind of knowledge that makes humans formidable. Elias felt a chill, a mix of awe and apprehension. Why you? Why here? Lyra looked at him, her expression serious. Because humans are underestimated. The galaxy expects us to fail, but we don't. And I need to make sure that knowledge reaches humans who can use it, who can expand, survive, and thrive. Elias felt a swell of pride and responsibility. The station had seemed small, insignificant even, but now it was clear that it was part of something far larger, an opportunity for humanity to grow, to claim its place in the galaxy. Then we need to plan, he said. If others are coming for you, we need to make sure this knowledge is safe. Lyra nodded. Yes, and I need your help, your skills, your intuition. They are what make humans special. Together, we can protect this knowledge and ensure it reaches the right people. Over the next few days, they worked in close coordination. Lyra shared insights into alien strategies and behavior, showing Elia's patterns and tendencies that no human had studied before. He marveled at her understanding, how she could predict the aliens' moves, anticipate their logic, and yet always find a way to remain one step ahead. You see, she said one morning, they expect strength, weapons, brute force, but humans, we succeed through adaptability. Creativity, the ability to improvise. Elias nodded. We are underestimated because we don't fit their rules. Exactly, Lyra said, and that makes us dangerous, not just to them but to ourselves. We must use that unpredictability wisely. She began teaching him subtle techniques for communication and defense, not through violence but through strategy, misdirection, and resourcefulness. Every day brought new lessons, and every night they tested them, running simulations and creating scenarios to practice. Then a new problem appeared. A small alien scout ship approached, moving carefully, scanning the station. This one was different. It had intelligence, capable of adapting mid-scan. Elias and Lyra watched as it adjusted its path, seemingly trying to predict their moves. It's learning, Lyra said, faster than the first wave. Elias felt a surge of determination. Then we adapt faster. They adjusted the station systems, creating dynamic feedback loops that would confuse the scout. Lights flickered, doors shifted positions, and sensors emitted false data. The alien ship paused, hesitated, recalculated. Lyra smiled. Humans are unpredictable, we improvise, and that keeps us alive. Hours passed as they monitored the scout. Elias realized that humans' advantage was not technology, it was mindset. The aliens had power, precision, and speed, but humans had ingenuity, intuition, and creativity. That combination, unpredictable and flexible, could overcome almost any obstacle. Then Lyra revealed more about the knowledge she carried. It's a map, she said. Not a map of planets, but of ideas. Methods humans can use to expand, survive, and communicate across the galaxy. Ways to organize, think, and adapt that others cannot predict. Elias felt the weight of her words. The station, the isolated outpost, was now part of something monumental. They were not just surviving, they were preparing for humanity's growth, for humans to claim a place among the stars. Then we need to secure it, he said. Make sure it reaches others who can use it. Lyra nodded. Yes, but we cannot do it alone. We must find allies, even small ones, humans who understand the importance of adaptability, creativity, and courage. Together, they began planning. The station would become a hub, a place to share knowledge, to teach humans the ways to survive and thrive. Every system they upgraded, every procedure they refined was part of that preparation. Days passed. The alien presence grew stronger, more persistent. Elias and Lyra faced constant challenges, from malfunctioning sensors to unpredictable environmental shifts. But every time, humans' ingenuity found a solution. Every obstacle became a lesson, every problem an opportunity. One evening, while monitoring the sensors, Lyra turned to Elias. "You understand now, don't you? This isn't just about survival. It's about proving that humans can thrive, even in conditions no one expects us to endure." Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, it's not strength that matters. It's cleverness, courage, and adaptability." She smiled, a rare warmth in her expression. "Exactly, and humans have more of those than they realize." The station settled into a rhythm of preparation and vigilance. Every system was optimized, every strategy rehearsed, and every contingency planned. Humans were underestimated, yes, but that underestimation was their greatest advantage. They could think, adapt, and act in ways no alien algorithm could predict. Then the first real test arrived. A wave of alien ships approached, more numerous and coordinated than before. Elias and Lyra activated the station's defenses, decoys, false signals, rerouted power, and environmental anomalies. The ships moved cautiously, confused by the unpredictable human tactics. Hours of tension passed. Each wave tested their strategies, their ingenuity, and their courage. But humans adapted, always one step ahead. Elias realized that humans' greatest strength was not in weapons or speed, but in their minds. Creativity, intuition, and courage. These were forces that no alien could predict, no machine could replicate. By nightfall, the alien wave retreated, frustrated and baffled. The station remained intact, its systems functioning flawlessly. Elias looked at Lyra, feeling a deep respect for her insight and skill. "You were right," he said quietly. "Humans are underestimated, and that makes us dangerous." Lyra nodded. "Yes. And we will continue to prove it. One step at a time, one act of ingenuity at a time." As the stars glimmered outside, Elias felt a sense of purpose he had not known in years. The station was no longer a lonely outpost. It was a center of human ingenuity, a beacon for knowledge and survival. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "We are just beginning," she said softly. "The galaxy will test us, but humans, we can endure, we can thrive. And we can teach others to do the same." Elias nodded. "Then let's make sure we are ready." The station hummed around them, a quiet symphony of technology and human determination. Outside, the stars remained silent and infinite. But within that vast expanse, humans had carved a place for themselves. Not through force, but through intellect, courage, and the ability to adapt. And somewhere in the distance, Elias knew, the galaxy would take notice. The station was quiet that morning, bathed in the pale light of distant stars. The events of the past weeks had left Elias both exhausted and exhilarated. Every system was operating smoothly, every strategy had been tested, and the alien threat had, for now, receded. But the calm was temporary. Lyra stood at the observation window, staring into the void. Her expression was distant, thoughtful, as though she could see beyond the immediate space surrounding the station. Elias approached quietly, carrying 2 cups of tea. "You've been quiet," he said gently, handing her one of the cups. Lyra accepted it with a faint smile. "I am thinking," she said softly, "about what comes next." Elias nodded, understanding. "The knowledge you carry, it must reach humans who can use it." "Yes," she said, "and not just survive. Humans must thrive, expand, think differently, act in ways others cannot predict." He sat beside her, feeling the weight of her words. For so long, he had been alone on the station, managing its systems, living in routine and solitude. But her arrival had changed everything. The station was no longer just a post in the void. It was a place of learning, strategy, and human ingenuity. "Do you think humans are ready?" he asked quietly. Lyra took a sip of her tea, her gaze still fixed on the stars. "Some are, some will learn. And some will surprise even me. That is the beauty of humanity. You are unpredictable, clever, and courageous. You adapt, you think, you endure. That makes you ready, even if you do not always know it." Elias smiled faintly, a warmth spreading through him. Then we do what humans do best. We prepare, we adapt, and we act. Over the next hours, they finalized their plans. Lyra would leave the station soon, carrying her knowledge to other human colonies and outposts. Elias would remain, ensuring the station stayed secure and operational. But the station's purpose had changed. It was no longer a lonely outpost. It was a hub, a beacon for human ingenuity, a place where creativity, courage, and adaptability could thrive. The first sign of her departure came with a distant signal, a prearranged frequency that would guide her safely through the outer sectors. Lyra checked the sensors, confirming that the path was clear. "It is time," she said quietly. Elias nodded, though a pang of regret touched him. "You will return?" he asked, echoing the words he had spoken when she first arrived. Lyra turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "I promised you," she said, "and I always keep my promises." Together they walked through the corridors one last time. Lyra paused at each station panel, each observation deck, each corner of the small facility. She touched them lightly, as if imprinting her presence on the station. "You've changed this place," she said softly. "It is no longer just metal and circuits. It is alive in its own way because of humans like you." Elias felt a swell of pride. The station had been his home for years, but it had become something more, a symbol of what humans could achieve when they combined intelligence, courage, and creativity. The docking bay doors opened with a hiss. Lyra's small craft waited, engines glowing faintly. Elias walked with her to the airlock, feeling a strange mix of anticipation and melancholy. "You will be safe," he said, "and humans will continue to adapt, to learn, to thrive." Lyra nodded. "Yes, but it will not be easy. Challenges will come, unexpected and difficult. Humans must use their greatest strengths, creativity, courage, and adaptability to succeed." Elias looked at her, thinking of the past weeks, their work together, the alien threats, the strategies and solutions that had kept them safe. He realized something essential. Humans were underestimated, yes, but that underestimation was their greatest advantage. "You've given humanity a chance," he said quietly, "and they will take it." Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. "I hope so. But humans always do." She entered her craft, checking the controls one last time. The engines hummed softly, ready to carry her across the void. Elias stood by the observation window, watching as the small ship lifted and moved toward the stars. For a moment, there was silence. The station seemed to exhale, its systems steady and humming, a quiet reminder of the work done, the lessons learned, and the challenges yet to come. Then, the ship disappeared into the distance, leaving behind a trail of faint light. Elias remained at the window, watching, knowing that the galaxy was vast, but humans had already made their mark, even in a small, isolated station at the edge of known space. Days passed, and the station returned to its routines. Yet something had changed. Elias moved with a sense of purpose, checking systems, refining procedures, and preparing for the next human arrivals. The station was no longer just a lonely outpost. It was a place of growth, learning, and ingenuity, a hub where humans could thrive in a galaxy that did not yet understand them. Occasionally, faint signals appeared on the monitors, messages from distant colonies, responses from humans who had received Lyra's knowledge, or simple greetings from those discovering the station for the first time. Each signal carried a sense of hope, of connection, of the human ability to adapt and endure. Elias realized that humanity's true strength was not in weapons, speed, or sheer power. It was in creativity, ingenuity, courage, and the ability to think differently. It was in their unpredictability and their resilience. It was in their willingness to act, even when the odds seemed impossible. He spent hours at the observation deck, looking out into the endless void. Stars stretched across the darkness, indifferent and infinite. And yet within that vast expanse, humans had carved a place, a place where intelligence, courage, and creativity mattered, a place where humans could thrive. Lyra's words echoed in his mind. Humans are unpredictable. They adapt. They endure. Elias smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride and responsibility. The station was his home, yes, but it was also a symbol of what humans could achieve when they trusted their instincts, their ingenuity, and their courage. Weeks later, a faint blip appeared on the station's sensors. It was distant, small, and moving unpredictably. Elias studied it carefully. It was human, a traveler, perhaps one of the first to receive Lyra's knowledge following the path she had set. He adjusted the sensors, sending a welcoming signal. The ship responded and a faint message appeared on the display. "Thank you." Elias nodded. Humanity was beginning to connect, to grow, to thrive. The galaxy may have underestimated them, but humans had a strength no one could predict, and that strength was just beginning to reveal itself. As night fell, he stood at the observation window once more, watching distant stars. The station hummed quietly, alive with energy and purpose. Humans were no longer just survivors. They were innovators, thinkers, and creators, and the galaxy, vast and silent, would come to recognize them in ways it could not yet imagine. Elias felt a quiet sense of hope. The universe was enormous, full of unknown challenges, and yet humans had already begun to rise. They had courage, ingenuity, and the ability to adapt in ways no one else could. And somewhere across the stars, Lyra continued her journey, spreading knowledge, teaching humans to thrive, and proving that even in the vast, indifferent universe, humanity had a place and a future. Elias turned from the window and walked through the station, checking systems, refining processes, and preparing for what was next. The station was small, yes, but it was a symbol of human resilience, creativity, and the power of intelligence. The galaxy was vast, but humanity's journey had only begun. And in that beginning, Elias understood something essential. Humans were unstoppable, not because they were the strongest, but because they were clever, courageous, and endlessly inventive. And somewhere, in the infinite darkness of space, the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, bearing witness to the quiet rise of humanity.